The phone rang twice before someone picked up, but it wasn't her voice that answered. Hello. It was Daniel. For a moment my brain refused to process it. I just stared at the dark hotel ceiling, the glow of the phone lighting my hand. Dan, I said, half laughing. What the hell are you doing with Emily's phone? Silence. Then a sharp inhale. Ryan, hey man. She's. The sound of movement came through the speaker. Sheets rustling. A muffled whisper. Then the line went dead. I just lay there, the world shrinking to the buzzing of the disconnected call. I'd been in Boston for 3 days on a client pitch that was supposed to change everything: new accounts, new money, maybe even a new start. Emily and I had been distant lately. Too many late nights, too many just tireds. Too many arguments that ended in silence. But I still believed we were fixable. So that night, lying alone in my hotel room at 1 a.m., I called her just to hear her voice. To remind myself why all of it, the stress, the travel, the grind, was worth it. Instead, I got Daniel, my best friend since college. My brother in every way except blood. By the time I flew home the next evening, I'd gone through every possible explanation. Maybe they were together because she called him for help. Maybe she'd lost her phone and he'd found it. Maybe. But deep down I already knew the truth. When I pulled into our driveway, her car was there. The porch light was on. Everything looked perfectly normal, which somehow made it worse. Emily opened the door before I even knocked. She smiled, that tight, nervous smile I hadn't seen since we first started drifting apart. You're back early. Yeah, I said, forcing a smile. Surprise. She looked perfect as always. Her hair tied back, wearing that faded sweatshirt I loved. For a moment I wanted to believe the lie. Then I saw it. A man's jacket draped over the couch. Black leather. Daniel's. My stomach twisted. He was here. Her eyes flickered to the jacket. Oh, yeah, he dropped by earlier. We were just talking. He left his jacket. I stepped closer, my voice calm but shaking underneath. Talking. At 1 in the morning. She froze. Her lips parted slightly. What? I held her gaze. I called you last night. From the hotel. Daniel answered your phone. Her face drained of color. And in that moment, that single heartbeat of silence, I knew everything. She didn't cry right away. Neither did I. We just stood there. The air between us thick with all the words we hadn't said in months. Ryan, she whispered. Please, it's not what you think. I almost laughed. Then tell me what it is, Emily. Tell me why my best friend had your phone. Tell me why he sounded like he was trying not to breathe. She shook her head, tears forming. It just happened, okay? I didn't plan it. You were gone all the time and I was lonely and he was convenient. I finished for her. Her silence was an answer. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I just sat on the edge of the couch, staring at the floor while she cried quietly a few feet away. When we first met, she'd been the loudest person in the room. Fearless, alive, the kind of woman who laughed with her whole body. Now she looked like a stranger wearing my wife's face. How long? I asked. She hesitated. A few months. Few months. Meaning every time Daniel and I had grabbed a beer, every joke, every how's them doing? He'd already known the answer better than I did. I could taste the bitterness on my tongue. You were both lying to me. I didn't want to hurt you, she whispered. I looked at her, then really looked at her, and realized how meaningless that sentence was. People say that to make themselves feel better. But the truth is, betrayal is always a choice. That night I packed a bag. She followed me upstairs, pleading softly. Please don't leave like this. We can talk about it. I made a mistake, but I still love you. I zipped my bag without looking at her. You don't get to use that word anymore. She started crying harder, and for a moment I almost broke. Part of me wanted to hold her, to comfort her like I used to. But then I remembered Daniel's voice on the phone. That awkward pause. That silence filled with guilt. I walked past her without saying another word. For the first week, I stayed in a cheap apartment near the office. I couldn't eat. Couldn't sleep. Every text from her went unanswered. Every call from Daniel went straight to voicemail. One night he showed up at my door. Ryan, he started, his voice hoarse. Please man, let me explain. I just stared at him. The guy who'd been my best man, who'd held my hand when my father died, who'd promised me he'd always have my back. There's nothing left to explain, I said. He stepped closer. It was a mistake. We were both drunk that night, and then it just... Stop. My voice came out low, shaking. You don't get to rewrite it. You made a choice. Both of you did. He looked down, jaw clenched. I know. And I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to make him feel the same kind of pain that had been sitting in my chest for days. But I couldn't. Because beneath all the anger, there was just emptiness. Then live with it, I said quietly. And I shut the door in his face. Time moved differently after that. Days blurred into nights, and everything I'd built, my marriage, my friendships, my sense of self, felt like ashes in my hands. I started running again. Long, aimless runs through the city, chasing exhaustion because it was easier than thinking. Some nights I'd still reach for my phone at 1 a.m., half expecting her name to light up the screen. But it never did. 3 months later, Emily sent me a letter. Handwritten. It said she'd moved out of the house, that she was starting therapy, that she didn't expect forgiveness, just wanted me to know she was sorry. I read it once. Then again. Then I folded it neatly and put it in the back of my drawer, next to our wedding photo. Forgiveness wasn't coming anytime soon. Maybe not ever. But at least now, the silence between us didn't hurt quite as much as it used to. Last week I saw Daniel at a coffee shop downtown. He didn't notice me at first. Just sat there, staring into his cup, looking older, smaller somehow. When he finally looked up and our eyes met, I expected the old fury to rise again. But instead I just felt tired. He stood halfway, as if debating whether to come over. I shook my head once, not in anger but finality. He nodded slowly and sat back down. That was enough. People think betrayal is a single event, a sharp break, a clean wound. But it isn't. It's slow decay. It's the echo of what was, the quiet moments when you reach for someone who isn't there anymore. It's the silence that follows a phone call at 1 a.m., when a voice you trusted most becomes the one that shatters you. But here's the thing. Eventually that silence becomes peace. And one day when you finally stop replaying the sound of that call in your head, you realize something simple: you survived it. And that's enough.